Yes, good afternoon. It is a pop-up Thanksgiving interview for Life on Purpose Live. We have my friend Tina Yeager with us today. We're going to talk about some fun topics and also how to deal with stress and anxiety during the holidays. But Tina, welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
Thanks, Beth. It's great to be here.
It's fun to get to chat on Thanksgiving because we know everyone's in the hustle and bustle of either traveling or, cooking and having people over or, whatever the various things people are doing are because it kicks off kind of a busy season. And let's talk about being a beautiful warrior. And your book is A Beautiful Warrior. And we all want to be beautiful warriors, but sometimes we don't feel so beautiful, nor do we feel very warrior like. So, how did you come up with that topic? Because it's a great topic.
Well, my original title was actually Unlovable because that was how
Mm,
I felt for so very, very long. And I wanted to reach out to other people who were experiencing that low self-esteem issue and help women to just really understand that Christ gives us purpose and identity and worth. And we can come together as sister warriors and
hmm
find our purpose and fulfill it. And it's similar to the new title, Upcycled, how we often feel like old and worn and rusty and like our mistakes make us into pieces of junk. But that isn't so, because in the hands of God, He redeems, He upcycles, He makes us new. And He's
hmm
the one who gives us our definition, our identity, and our purpose.
Well, and your subtitle in the book is so important because it's about identifying the lies. It's finding victory over the lies formed against you. So that's very loaded because most of the time we don't ever identify what those lies are. We think that there's something with us and God. Maybe He's not hearing our prayers. We don't really feel that sense of identity like we feel like we should. So, how do we identify those lies? Because there are lies up against us, and they are like brick walls sometimes, but we don't know how to A, name them, and then B, scale them and get over them.
Well, kind of think about your self talk. How do you talk to yourself? What are the things that you say as automatic reactions when something doesn't go right? When you blame yourself for not being perfect, when you've made a mistake, do you often say things like, I'm such a failure, I am such a screw up, I am always stupid, I never do anything right, I always make a mess of things? All of those hyperbole based statements, all of those negative statements, things you would never say to somebody that you love. You wouldn't say it to your daughter, your sister, or your best friend. And you shouldn't say it to yourself, because that is an indication that you have a shame based lie that you are holding yourself captive inside of. The enemy is feeding it to you. He is helping you stay stuck in that negative identity, that negative label, those lies that are wrapping you and holding you down and holding you back. He wants you
hmm
to stay held back. He wants you to stay paralyzed. He wants you to stay down. But it is God's objective to help you fulfill that purpose for which you are created. And those shame lies are you cooperating with what the enemy wants, and that's to keep you down. And do
Yeah.
you want to cooperate with the enemy, or do you want to fulfill the purpose that was given to you, that was part of why you were designed the way you were, the reason why you were even created before you were born? God gave you a purpose. God gave you a unique identity that only you can fulfill. There's nobody else out there that's going to be you. And if
Yeah.
you don't rise up to become that you, then there are going to be people out there that are waiting to receive from you what you only you can give. You are the
Yeah.
only one that can fill that place, that empty spot. So if you don't
hmm
do it, there are going to be people out there that are missing out on the blessings that only you can provide the way that you will provide it.
Well, and you're a life coach and you're a licensed professional counselor certified. So you work with people on these very things and you help people kind of dig below those layers of lies and come out with the revelation of, oh my gosh, I do have a purpose for my life. God does have plans for me. What are the things that you think or that you have discovered have been the holdbacks or the pitfalls that most people don't realize they're getting held up by?
Well, a lot of times a lie is based on how you interpret what happened to
hmm
you in the past, or what
Yeah.
has not yet happened to you that you had hoped would
Mm,
happen and that was a dream that never got fulfilled. So one of those two things, something that happened or something that didn't happen, and
mm,
making that mean something in your mind, that this means that I am a failure. This
mm,
means that I am stupid. And those kind of limitations that you put on yourself based on something that happened, a circumstance, a tragedy, a trauma, an illness, a mistake that you made. It might be something that's true that actually happened, but that doesn't mean this will always be that way or that you have to stay here. You can
mm,
move past that. And that's the difference between a victorious mentality, an overcoming mentality, a growth mindset, and being stuck in your mistakes and remaining a victim and blaming yourself, blaming your circumstances, blaming others for staying stuck. So moving
mhm,
past that mindset of being stuck in your past, being stuck even in your present, and being
mhm,
stuck with the mistakes of where you've been and what you are now does not necessarily define where you can go from here. If you look at scripture and you look at the examples there, God didn't give people their name based on who they were at the time he called them or where they had been before. He gave them
mhm.
a new name based on what only God could do through them.
Yeah.
Moses, the deliverer, he was not anything that you would consider the substance to make a deliverer out of. He was a
Yeah.
stutterer, we think, because of the way that he responded to God, that he had a speech impediment.
Mhm,
He said he was
mhm,
not good with words. And so he also was a murderer. He was someone who was exiled from the nation he was supposed to go back and deliver. And the people that he was going to deliver didn't have any respect for him. So
yeah.
all of those things were stacked up against him. And he had all these reasons why I'm not your guy. I'm not your
Yeah.
guy. I'm not your
Yeah.
guy. But that's not
Mhm.
what God said. God said, this is what I'm going to do.
You
And
are
I'm
my
going to,
guy.
yeah, he said, you are my guy. And what God declares to be true cannot be
Mhm,
negated by what we've done, what we are
mhm.
doing, or what we have to bring to the table.
Yeah. But there is work involved on our
Yes.
end. I think sometimes people look at successful people, and I've been interviewing people for a long time, and most of them are very successful, and they are living their dream. But it wasn't always that way. They had to get to that. They had to overcome. They had to really dig deep and persevere. And I think sometimes we misunderstand when we hit a roadblock, or the dreams. And I know you're very big on helping people with revitalizing those dreams and visions, because God does give us those. But there's work that we have to do. We do have to pray. We do have to quieten our mind. We do have to read the Bible. We do have to seek God above all else, and until we get an answer. And I think sometimes people forget that it's not some quick easy fix. It is easy to be saved, but then walking out that salvation is a daily commitment, right?
That's right. We have a choice. That's God's great gift to us, is that we could choose to receive that destiny, that identity, that purpose, or we can choose to just sit and dwell where we are and stay
Mhm.
stuck and not
Mhm.
fulfill that. So we have to
Mhm.
choose to step out of the boat onto the water, so to speak. We
Yeah.
have to choose to act in faith, knowing that the heavy lifting, the hard part, God is going to do, but we have to show up and we have to be
Mhm.
willing to be there and be the vessel he wants us to be and step out into that place that looks impossible, looks like we
Mhm.
could never be able to do it. But we have to believe that the power comes not just from us, and that will give us that mindset that we need to step forth into the things that would otherwise seem too big for us. They are too big
Yeah.
for us. We
They
aren't good
are.
enough. We aren't good
Right.
enough to do any of those things, but God is. God is
Right.
enough. But you're right. We have to step out and act on the positive Christ-centered identity mindset that we are adopting into our
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah. We have to unthink what was the wrong thinking, and then adopt the new way of renewing your mind. That's why the Bible says it so many times, because that's really our work, is to believe and to renew our minds. But I want to go back to something you said. um, we know to deal with things that have happened in our life, but you said something that's very interesting. What about the things that haven't happened? Those dreams that we thought God called us to do, or that family we thought we were going to have, or that vision that we felt like God had given us, and it kind of fell apart. what do you say to someone who's kind of given up on, well, I thought God called me to do something, but that never happened, or this never came about, or anything like that? I mean, what do you say to someone who's feeling a little like, I give up?
We would have to look at, is that a good dream or a God dream? First of all,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we misunderstand something that's our dream and think it's God's dream. And really, what God is leading us through to get to his dream is giving up the dream that was less than what he really had for us. And if we stay so mentally focused on the thing we thought we wanted, we'll miss out on the better thing that God has for us. Or we have to look at, am I missing out continuing to pursue something and persevere toward a dream that God truly did call me to, but I'm not seeing the path. I'm not seeing all the things laid out for me just yet. All I can see is one step at a time. But you've got to take that one step at a time to get to that God dream. And sometimes it takes a lot longer than we think it's going to. And so just because it hasn't happened doesn't mean it won't happen later. It may be that it just hasn't happened yet. I mean, if you look at Abraham, it took a very long time
Yeah.
before his dream of being a father of many nations was
Mm-hmm.
fulfilled. And in
Yeah.
fact, he really only saw two offspring, not many nations. He never really saw the fulfillment. This was beyond his lifetime. And for many of the people that God called, they weren't able to see right away the big dream that God had. I mean, David, he was 15 years between the time he was anointed and the time he actually became king. He spent
Mm-hmm.
a lot of time in exile, running away from King Saul with the least possible desirable guys that you could imagine hanging out with in caves. He was kind of
Yeah.
homeless for a while and still believing that God had this dream, this vision, this anointing for him to become king. He had to wait for that for
Yeah.
15 years before it happened. So it doesn't always happen right away. There was a point at which I was very frustrated with this call to write, and it had been 5 years since God had told me that he wanted me to write. And I said, I don't think you know who you're calling here. I don't have this kind of perseverance. I'm not Noah. I was
Yeah.
having a really bad writers conference. I had no sleep for 4 days. So thankfully, God was very merciful with me in that time, knowing I'd had no sleep. And that's really good and gracious of God. And he said, so you don't think I know who I'm calling?
Yeah.
I
Mm.
said, fine, you're God. You probably know who you're calling. I just want you to know I don't like how this is going.
Yeah.
I was being really bratty about it.
Yeah.
And
This is not what I had in
no,
mind. God.
no,
Yeah.
this is taking way too long. I mean, it had only been 5 years. I had 10 more years to go.
Yeah.
So he said, he just kind of gave me this picture, this image of Jesus hanging on the cross in front of me. And it wasn't like something I could see. It wasn't like a hallucination or anything. It was just this
Yeah.
vision of the Lord hanging on the cross, and his feet were at eye level, just
Mm.
battered and bloodied and
Mm.
bruised and covered in dirt and just trembling there on the cross, nailed to the cross right in front of my face. And the Lord said, Tina, if I just asked you to wash my feet, would you do that for me? And I didn't get bratty with the Lord anymore after that. I didn't fight with him anymore after that. Because how do
Yeah.
you fight with that?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
how do you bring yourself to fight with someone who died for you like that? And
Mm-hmm.
so I
Yeah.
said, yeah, of course I would do that for you. So I didn't argue anymore. And it was quite a lot longer because we don't get perseverance by just jumping into it. You have to persevere through something to
Yeah.
reach a dream in order to
Yeah.
develop perseverance. So was it fun?
Yeah.
Perseverance is not a fun thing to develop, but
Yeah.
it's part of that development of our character. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes reaching a dream that hasn't been fulfilled is part of God developing our character. We need to trust God in what he's doing for us during the times when we're not getting what we think we were supposed to get from
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. It's the inside work that he's doing that produces the outside manifestation of it. But we've got to persevere for that internal heart surgery that
Right.
we're having. So let's talk
Painful.
about subduing stress and anxiety, because this is the time of year when, you know, people feel stress and anxiety, and it's a lot of people pleasing and a lot of family stress and things like that. And at the same time, it's also finishing up the year, and you begin to feel the burden of what all you didn't get done. And then, your New Year's resolutions create a guilt trip, and you're like, oh my gosh, next year I'm going to do so much better. But how do you take that stress and anxiety? Because stress and anxiety can be very good things if you use them to change. Because they're like red flags. They're like, okay, God's showing me this is an area where you need some work. So let's work on this. So when you're working with people and they're very stressed and they have a lot of anxiety, how do you help them to subdue that? Because that's the big question of the day.
Sometimes our stress and anxiety is related to us taking on the pressure of tomorrow or the
Yes.
pressures of everyone else's emotions and experiences that are outside the boundaries of what we're supposed to take on ourselves. So you can really only fit so much on a healthy plate. And when you think about that, I know we don't want to think about limiting our plates tomorrow on Thanksgiving. We want to dump all this food on our plate. But then when you dump too much on your plate, what happens after you've put too much on your plate? The plate is heavy to carry. You could make a big mess, and you're probably going to end up feeling sick after
Yeah.
you've eaten all that food.
Yeah.
So the same thing happens emotionally when we take other people's portions and put them on our plates. And when we take God's portion and try to eat that and consume that and be responsible for all this stuff that doesn't belong to us. So remembering what belongs to you and what doesn't belong to you, that's setting emotional boundaries. Somebody else's happiness is really not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to be the person you're called to be in their life. You can do the right things. You can say the right things, all the things you're meant to do and say that God has called you to do and say, but that does not mean you're responsible for how they respond to it.
Yeah.
They are responsible.
How do you recognize those areas of blind spots and say, okay, this person is, I'm really living to please them a little too much, or this habit is how do you inventory specific things and begin to weed them out so that we're not getting distracted by that?
Well, setting boundaries is about saying, this is where I stop and you begin, and recognizing that somebody else is responsible for their words, their thoughts, their feelings, and their behavior. If you try to take responsibility emotionally or mentally for any of those things, or try to control or manage or manipulate those things, that is when you are overstepping a boundary, and that creates conflict and frustration and anger. And that's because you're taking on responsibility for somebody else's words, thoughts, feelings, or actions. And if somebody else is trying to control or manipulate your words, thoughts, feelings, or behavior, then that is somebody else overstepping their boundaries. So recognizing where those boundaries are supposed to go and where God steps in, God is responsible for somebody else's overall well-being and destiny. You cannot take God's responsibility and God's role. So recognizing what belongs to God is the outcome of things. What belongs to you is obeying God. What does the Lord require of me? To do justly, to do what God calls you to do. You just obey him from one day to the next, doing the right thing, saying the right thing as he calls you and leads you according to his Holy Spirit. And to do justly, to love mercy, and to love others. That doesn't mean you let them hurt you. It doesn't mean that you let them try to control you. You could set boundaries, but loving other people means loving them without trying to control or manipulate them. You can love somebody even if you don't agree with what they do. And remembering the difference between those things. Loving is not the same as condoning behavior that's toxic or agreeing with everybody's position on everything. You don't have to agree with everybody to love them. So to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk with God, always let him guide you and lead you. He'll let you know if you ask him, do I need to take a step outside before I respond to this person? Sometimes it's best to just take a minute. If your heart rate has gone up that's not the time to offer a response.
Yeah.
Because your frontal lobe of your brain shuts down when your heart rate goes up and your breath gets faster. That's when you have entered that limbic system of the brain operating, and you are fighting or flighting. You are
Yeah.
not responding with your best, well thought out answer. You are
Yeah.
trying to defend yourself. And that is
Yeah.
where things can create long-term rifts between people. So know when it's best to just take a step back, get
Yeah.
your heart rate back down, calm down, and pray, God, how do you want me to respond? Do you want me to respond at all? Will
Yeah.
I just be better off letting you deal with that person? I don't
Yeah.
have to fix them. So fixing somebody is not how we love people. And I think that's
Yeah.
another mistake a lot of people make. We think that whenever we love somebody, that means we have to fix them. And that
Yeah.
is not the same. Fixing somebody means I'm your God, and
Yeah.
that doesn't mean I love you.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think sometimes the stress and the anxiety that we feel is self-imposed because we are taking on, I like that visual of the plate. We put too much on our plate and we're carrying these things around everywhere we go. And so if we're feeling stress and if we're feeling anxiety or if we're feeling not productive, then that's a great time to have what I call a self-imposed identity crisis, right? So let's really look at what I'm doing and let me really evaluate how I'm managing my life and the relationships in my life so that then I can do a better job of what you're saying is choosing my response. It's you either react or respond. And when you react, that's usually what gets us in trouble, right?
yes, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's talk about your Flourishment podcast. So that's one of the things you're doing. And so you interview a lot of people, kind of like what we do. And I love the way we can all talk to each other about the things that we're doing. Um, what are the things you're learning from other people that are living on purpose that you're like, oh my gosh, that's such a great thing? What are some things that you're seeing and seeing people doing that are being successful at turning things around and becoming more productive, more on purpose, and more flourished?
I am really loving being a podcast host because I learned so much. And I know that you probably agree with this with your On
Yeah.
Purpose show. Learned so much from so many amazing people that have been through things that you would never imagine somebody could
Right.
overcome. And,
Exactly.
like there was a kid that his writing name is JT Jester. And he has a chronic illness that requires him to have a medical team supporting him to be able to survive every single day. And he's had this condition since he was born, and he had to go through over a dozen surgeries as a child. And when he was little, like 9 years old, his father said to him after, I think he was in the hospital for most of an entire year that year. And his father said, I'm sorry you're having so many bad days. And his response was, there are no bad days, only hard ones. And
Mm.
for a child to have that depth of wisdom and insight and resilience is incredible. And then he went on to become an extreme skier, a mountaineer. He has climbed Everest. I mean, just all these things that you wouldn't think an ordinary person would normally try to tackle. This young man who has overcome this chronic, very serious medical condition has faced all of these things for the purpose of inspiring people. And he
Mm.
has a sense of humor. He was bright, beautiful smile. And so I love that story. That was something, that overcoming story and that mindset piece of how you see the hardships that you're faced with as not being a bad day, but something that's hard that you can get
Yeah.
through. So I loved that story. And then there was also a story from somebody who was president of Taylor University. He had interviewed, hundreds and hundreds of people, CEOs, Condoleezza Rice, secretaries of state, cabinet members, and he talked about hinge moments, the moments when you make a shift in your
Mm.
mindset, when something happens that was unexpected, that changes your life, how you choose to make that turn, to respond to that is critical. So it's not just what happens to us, but what we do with what happens to us. So I think both of those stories tell a very similar message, but from a different perspective. One from extremely successful CEOs and heads of state to somebody who overcame an almost impossible situation medically. How we look at things, how we overcome the things that we're faced with has everything to do with how we live our lives, the quality, not just of our life, but of the way we influence the lives around us.
Yeah, it's so true. We're all going to have to be overcomers because we're all going to have to overcome things because it is a broken world. We're in broken families and that type of thing. But I think it's so important to remember that will to make that adjustment and that attitude is so important because we all have to. And I heard somebody say one time, and I believe this to be true, the happiest people that you come across are the ones that have overcome the most because they're so grateful for having overcome things. And I think sometimes that's true because you really have a real perspective when you've overcome and God's gotten you through something and he's gotten you to something that was better, then you're pretty happy about it and you're going to live more on purpose. And I think that's basically what you find on your interviews and me as well is nobody had it easy, but you have to dig deep and keep going.
And I think also it doesn't mean you have to have a terrible hardship in order to be an influence. So it's just a matter of what you do with what God has given you, just like the parable of the talents. You could be given 5 talents or 10 talents. But the important point is, are you investing what you were given, whether it was something good or something not good, how you invest that back in trust for the one who gave it to you, because you know that he is good and you want to do good things because you believe God is good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. That's very, very true. Well, we could talk all day, but we won't because, we'll be too long. But so the best way for people so you coach, you speak, you're a counselor, you do podcasts, you've written books, so people can reach out to you and be in touch with you. The best way is through your website.
Yes, tinayeager.com is the very best way.
The very best way, and then you're right there. So and you're coming to us from North Carolina, so that's the part of the world you're in, and you're very available to go around and talk to people and help and speak and those kinds of things. And we were just together in Texas learning how to be excellent in media, and that was very fun. So challenging ourselves to learn and grow and stretch ourselves, and that's a big part of it as well. So yeah. So anyway, well, thank you for joining me today, the day before Thanksgiving. And I hope you have a great day tomorrow. We'll definitely keep in touch. And this has been a great time to take a minute to just reflect on how we can continue to grow and learn from one another.
Absolutely. Thank you, Beth. And you have a great Thanksgiving too.
Okay. Thank you. We'll talk soon.